What's going on, fishy friends? Rich here, Rich's Fishes, and today we got some new fish to unpack, and we're going to take a look at the African cichlid tank at my office and see if we can't revamp this one. Getting ready to unpack some new fish. Alright guys, so here's my 55-gallon African cichlid tank that I keep at the office. This is a tank that I unfortunately is the wrong word. No, it's not. It's just I'm wording it the wrong way. Unfortunately, when I put this tank together, I wasn't really filming all that much of my hobby and didn't know what my hobby would quite turn into, didn't know what my YouTube channel would turn into. So at the time, I hadn't really done much effort on filming it, but this is kind of an interesting setup that I ended up doing here. I tried to make this thing as fail-proof as possible. Again, this is at my office where I am not all the time, you know, at the very least. I'm here Monday through Friday for a good 8 or 9 hours a day. But there are, you know, periods of time when I am not here, when I am perhaps working somewhere other than inside of my office, and or perhaps the weekend or evenings or any other time of day when I just don't happen to be at work. So I wanted to make this as fail-safe as possible, and as hands-off as possible. So I have a sump down below. This is a wet-dry trickle filter, I suppose, is what it's actually referred to. And I have various float switches and stuff and other electronics to sort of ensure as much automation as possible, as well as ensure as much safety as possible. I have a reservoir back here that holds, I forget exactly what it holds. It holds a good 35, 40 gallons of water. And I have a little pump in there that does automatic top-offs for me, besides the main pump of the filter over there, which returns water back up into the tank through that, and the water overflows out of this overflow box over here by glassholes.com. Hope I don't get flagged for saying that word, but that's the name of their company. I'll put a link below. And the switches and everything, this top switch here, that's for the automatic top-off system. If for some reason I chose that I wanted to turn it off, I could do so. And then I have two red lights here. I have a green light to indicate when the top-off is actually running. It runs, well, I'll explain. There's float switches back in here. It's a mess back here and it's tiny and I can't film well. But the float switches, and roughly when the water gets down to about there, there's a tiny little magic marker line. Roughly when it gets back to there is when it starts refilling, and I think it fills, it doesn't fill to here. It fills a little below this line, and then if I turn the pump off, it would fill to here. And that would ensure it never overflows completely. So the green light over here will turn on when the water drops down to there, and then the pump from that blue reservoir over here will turn on and pump fresh water into the sump up until this line here, roughly. The red light indicates if I am running out of water in that blue reservoir. That red light will turn on to indicate that the system is off, and then I will have to fill it up before it'll work again. The other switch here is for the main pump. If I shut this down, the main pump will turn off. The return line there will stop flowing water, and then all the excess water will overflow into the sump and hit roughly this line here. So it took a lot of figuring to make sure that the sump wouldn't overflow if the power went out, and to figure out how to work all these switches and everything. Not how to work them, but how to wire them so that way they worked properly. I have some float switches in the tank there, and back there. So if the water at level in the main tank ever rises above that point, this red light will turn on and the main pump will be shut off. To turn that pump back on, I'd have to press and hold this button next to the switch. And that way, I wired it up that way, so that way if anything ever did fail, say if something caused the water level to rise in here, if it immediately went back down, I didn't want the pump to turn back on and then recreate the same condition and cycle on and off and on and off and on and off. I wanted to have to come and manually reset everything to turn it back on. Similarly, if the water level rises too high and or too low in the sump, it will also turn off that main pump the same way if we overflowed up there, and a red light will indicate, and again, I'd have to, in theory, go find the problem and then go hit this button before I can turn everything back on. And that works very good. It works exactly as I intended. I run the sump in this tray just in case there's ever a mishap. Knock on wood, I've never had one. That's a big like underbed shoe tray or something like that. And I keep my heater in there. And you know, this keeps a lot of clutter out of the tank. I do run a hang-on back filter over here. I actually have a new motor that I have to replace in that. There's a sand substrate in here. This is pool filter sand. And these cichlids like to kick up sand, and that sand unfortunately makes its way into the filter and ruins the filter motor. But you know, it is extra filtration, so I'm not worried that that thing is not currently running. So let's see, let me set this thing up. I am going to rehome the 2 fish that are left in here. That's my OB somebody or other in the back corner there. Well, there's such a bad glare on this tank. Everything behind me in the office just reflects off it. Maybe I'll turn the light off. Let's see. That's a little better. So that OB back there, and there's a Demasoni in here who has just kicked everybody's butt. Those are the only 2 fish I have left in here. I was neglecting my fish duties at home, and similarly, I neglected my fish duties here at the office as well. You know, I keep up with some water changes here and there, but I was not doing as good as I should have. And that's evidenced by the fact that I only got 2 fish left in this tank, unfortunately. Anyway, let me set this stuff up and get rolling, guys. Alright guys, first things first, I'm going to have to take the hood off, remove the lamp off the top of this thing, and make some room so I can essentially start scrubbing the glass and doing a water change and try to catch those fish that are in there. Then what I'll probably do is remove all the rocks and rescape this thing from scratch and see where that takes us. Well, this ended up being a little more problematic than I had hoped. I thought I came with everything I needed to, and I did as far as the fish tank goes. I forgot a little bit of camera equipment though, such as extra memory cards, maybe a charger and an extra battery. But anyway, hopefully I was able to salvage enough footage using my cell phone in the interim while I was having some issues. But here's relatively the final product. I gotta go slow and steady with this because here at my office I have a very tiny hot water heater. It's like a 5 or a 10 gallon hot water heater that they actually have up hidden in the suspended ceiling, you know, on the other side of the acoustic ceiling tiles. So I can't do huge water changes when there's fish in the tank. What I actually did with the 2 fish that were in there was that Demasoni and what was the other one? The OB, the orange blotch. I put them down in the sump. They are much larger than the other fish that I just bought, and I'll talk a little bit more about them in a bit. I ended up just buying a bunch at the local fish store. Now, in all honesty, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of any local fish store near me, and I've got quite a few options. You know, a lot more than just the big chains like PetSmart and Petco or whatever the hell they're all called. I don't really enjoy many of them near me either. But even some of the smaller ones, I don't know. I've never had a fantastic experience, even at ones that I quote unquote like. But I decided, you know what, I'm tired of acting like an elitist when it comes to this stuff. My last tank, I was so So, I don't know. I felt it was so important to do an all-male Mbuna tank because that's what I read about people doing. That's what people said made it easier on them, which, you know, that's still a good thing to do, and take advice from people that have done it before and say it might be an easier way to do it. The idea of an all-male Mbuna tank, Mbunas grow a little bit smaller than haps and peacocks as far as African cichlids go. And if you can and guarantee yourself all males, there might be a little bit less aggression because there's no female for them to fight over. Another idea with African cichlids is to overstock the tank and crowd it out, and that way the fish are quote-unquote confused. They don't know who to chase after. But I decided, you know what, this time I am not going to spend $1 million buying individual fish from some website that proclaims they know everything about African cichlids, because I've tried real hard to learn about them, and you know what, I couldn't remember the different fish I had in this tank. There's just too many of them. So this time I went to the African cichlid section at my local fish store. Now, the majority of what they have are Mbunas. There's a few haps and peacocks mixed in, but those are labeled well enough that I can tell. And the employees there are somewhat knowledgeable, better than certain stores, but this guy gave me advice I've never heard before. I was going to get 10 or 15 different fish, and he and I spoke, and he's unable to sex them. It's his theory that African cichlids are all female at a particular size until they mature, when their sex develops. I'm not 100% sure if he's true on that. Matter of fact, I'm almost positive he's wrong. But he suggested to get 2 of each kind of fish I wanted to, and in his theory, one will turn into a male and one will stay female, and those 2 should be able to breed without too much aggression between them and the other fish. Again, I'm not 100% sure that's right, but you know what? I'm going for it. I don't care if he's right or wrong. I'm not going to sit there and try to argue with the guy at the fish store. Not that I ever did that, but I'm not going to walk out and say, geez, this guy's an idiot and doesn't know what he's talking about, and then not buy fish because of that. The fish looked healthy, the fish looked nice, those are what I'm going to get. So I'm going to wait a few more minutes for the hot water heater to regain its energy, so to say, and I'm going to continue this water change, and then I'm going to put the fish in to acclimate and give them a little bit of time to acclimate temperature-wise. I have been compiling, acquiring, stockpiling various kinds of rock specifically for African cichlids. I bought a lot of Texas Holy Rock. I bought a bunch of these little pieces once off eBay and was very, very disappointed. It's very difficult to do anything nice with them. I've got them right now kind of laying on top of slate. But I wanted to go taller with the rock work than I have before and create a lot more layers. And I got a couple of air stones in there, pumping out some bubbles. And you know what? Just for the fun of it, I threw a little fake castle on the corner. Again, I don't know. Sure, it's not natural, but I don't know. It looks kind of cool tucked away there in the corner. So I'm tired of being super elitist about this stuff. There's no need for it. There's no reason for it. Like I've said, I just want to start having some fun with the hobby again, guys. And right now, this looks like a pretty fun tank to me. I can't wait till I can get some fish in there. Let me keep at it.